Happy same year, everybody. It's not New Year's yet. Put the champagne away. You got another day or two at least. Mr. Rainwater, good evening.
Good evening, Jow.
We are talking about the art of prediction tonight. And while this may be a topic that circles back around at some point when we can maybe grab a, what's the word here? Like a fortune teller to be on. That would be fun to talk about and ask them questions. Not necessarily about how they might be scam artists.
Hey, I mean, just saying, I've got my tarot deck here. If we have some time, if we have extra time later on.
Okay, but see, you briefed me on this because when we were going to do the commentary episode, I did re-listen to episode 1 where you talked about this, and that's not about prediction. That's about reading into the things that are going on in your life and making decisions, and maybe just it's almost like questioning. It's like finding a good friend that will ask you questions about your decisions and stuff like that, so you can make better ones.
I use it. Sure, but if we want to fart around and pretend like do the Ouija board thing,
I'm talking about like the stupid shit where like the person with the crystal ball and they're waving their hand around and all this other kind of crazy nonsense. That kind of stuff is questionable in my opinion. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the idea that artists have an intuition that many other people don't. Now, granted, my perspective on that for me is that artists are good at reading people. And that usually indicates behavior and how things will go. In this instance, we're going to be talking about topics and how things might happen in the next year. And then next year we will revisit this, and see how we did, and then maybe make more predictions or play this differently or whatever. But the topics that we're going to talk about in terms of how I came to decide how I think they're going to go, I'm going off of how I think people are going to react to them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
I try to read a crowd just like I try to read a person. It's a weird thing. Like a lot of would you agree with me? I don't know if you will or not, but a lot of artists are introverts for a short time, and then once they have read the room, they become extroverts.
Yes and no. I definitely get what you're saying in the sense that there are a lot of artists who, a great example, right, would be like Robin Williams. Actually a very introverted person in normal everyday life. But once he understood like how to respond to a crowd and how to read a crowd and how to perform in that crowd, most extroverted person you've ever met because he felt in full control within that scenario. So I do think I get what you're saying in that regard. I wonder though if that's kind of dependent on the medium you're working in, like I don't know if I'd feel the same way if I were in a crowd of people who read Trailer Park Warlock. I might just be the same introverted person that I am now in most everyday life.
Well, that's because you might feel that they know you better than you have figured them out. Like they've had a longer time to try to mine into your mind and figure shit out. So I can understand where you could be, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but hesitant about opening up further. I'm not saying that artists are guarded people, but we are sensitive people. Yeah. And in that respect, we have to kind of guard a lot of ourselves and stuff from being read because people take advantage of it. And if you don't believe me out there in podcast land, talk to an artist if you're not one already about how many people will ask you to do something for your portfolio for free as a favor, blah, blah, blah. That kind of advantage taking happens to artists in every which way. I'm not saying like we're betas or, anything like that, but we get pushed around quite a bit. And so,
well, I mean, there was for a long time, there was this idea of like working for exposure, which was this idea, like you would do a lot of work and then your payment would be, getting your name in front of a bunch of people because whatever company, got your work and you did it for either really cheap or free, basically. Yeah. But that's just theft. I mean, really, quite honestly.
It really is. I mean, you wouldn't ask that of anybody else. Literally anyone else. It's just, it's almost as bad as an internship. It's the same thing. But anyway, what we're doing tonight, we're going to make some predictions about some things that happen in the coming year, and we're going to see how we do. I'm basing mine on how I think people will react. And I don't know how Rainwater is going to do his, but I'm sure he will explain it as best he can. We're going to kick off right off the bat with the elephant in the room, the Rona.
Oh, God.
How do we, two artists, think that COVID is going to be handled, reacted to, etc. in the coming year? Personally, I'll lead us off.
Yeah.
I think the new norm has been what we've gotten in the last quarter here of 2021. I think a new variant comes out. I think they say, oh, we don't know anything about it yet. We don't know what to do. Everybody be careful. Half of the population flips the fuck out, locks their doors, quits their jobs, and bitches on Twitter about how we should have universal basic income. The other half says, I don't need no vaccine. Walks around walking right up to people that they don't know, spitting in their face as they talk, acting like life is going on just the same. And it's just going to be that. It's going to be, by this time next year, we'll be on COVID Zelta Beta. You know what I mean? Sure. We'll have run through the alphabet once plus, and it'll be some new variant with something and something else, and it'll be the same discourse. I think it's going to be like this for a while.
How long of a while are you imagining?
Until something worse happens. A terrorist attack, or Trump gets reelected, or, you know what I mean? Like, something where the people who bitch endlessly about it will have something more important to bitch about. Because I think the complaining side of the population is very much like the news. They have to have something, so they'll take what they can get until they've got something bigger. And I think that's how the news it's the same way the news works.
That's an interesting way of putting it, because it is for people who, at least this has been my observation of that particular kind of personality you're talking about, for whom you don't get your news source directly from the news source. You get it from your friend or relative who seems to have their eyes on Fox News or whatever the hell 24/7, and so you get to hear about the next thing about the president or whatever when you didn't ask for it, right?
Yeah.
I've definitely seen that personality at work. I think that I would definitely describe that sort of interaction as almost a drug addiction. So, like,
okay, I can get on that.
I will say that I feel like I've seen, especially within my peer groups and within outer circles, I've seen more and more people talk about how they're just burnt out on the news and burnt out on politics and burnt out.
That would be me. I mean, I've been like that for a while, but more so now than ever.
On like those cycles. And so less and less I see people commenting even on like COVID related stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I use YouTube pretty regularly, and I will notice like, I often will scroll through like what all the mainstream news channels will post as their big headline thing. Mm-hmm. It's been all COVID, right, for at least the last
2 years. Plus.
However long ago it was that we were locked into the madhouse, and I will say that I haven't seen it change much, right? So Omicron's the big thing,
right? Keep in mind, we're going to be listening to this again next year, so we have to make sure we point out where we're at the moment.
here on December 26, 2021. I definitely agree with you that there are going to be other variants, because, I mean, logically, that's just what viruses do, right? The whole reason we have, like, here's the thing. If we were keeping track of all the variants of flu, we would have the same kind of naming system, not even every year, but like every couple of months, in kind of the similar way to COVID. For whatever reason, we've gotten used to the flu as a thing. And we've come to accept that there are certain numbers of deaths that are going to occur due to the flu.
Yeah.
This has been like accepted on a public basis that this is a thing. And I agree with you that my only disagreement is I don't know if it will take a bigger thing. You're right. Our new thing, not necessarily bigger, but a new thing, a thing that is beyond either of our prediction, I would say at this moment.
Well, because a lot of people are operating under fear.
Yes.
That's where it really comes in. Like how you were talking about with the flu. We understand the flu. We know how it works. Yep. We know who's the most at risk. We know how to, the vaccine, et cetera, like that. It's kind of that acceptance of understanding that we know everything there is to know about it at this point. So when people start getting a little bit more on the informed side of, who's at most risk with COVID, and as variants come out, who continues to be at most risk, that's when that stage of acceptance will start to be, and then we might start coming into a little bit more of a norm.
As cynical as this sounds, too, I think another element of this will be boredom. There will be a point where a big enough percentage of people who like consume the news will become bored of it. News outlets will notice this because they're like, oh, we're getting less clicks, we're getting less acknowledgement on stories. And they'll change the story, and it'll be whatever the new thing is. And it'll probably be something dumb. So that's my prediction in relation to that.
The news always operates in fear. They always have. They always will. Yeah. It's hilarious. If you take out stories about Trump or any of the hot topics, Trump, racism, like police brutality, or COVID, and you look at other stories, just look at them, like things that people aren't clearly divided on, there is some element of fear baked right into the headline. And any Joe Schmo common sense person, doesn't matter which side of the fence you fall on for COVID or Trump or whatever, when you look at that, you're like, oh, that's such bullshit. Like, look at how they're framing. Like, they can look at that with the clearest goggles, but then when it's COVID or any of the other hot topic ones, then it's also, oh my God, this is true. I read it on a reputable news site. But it's where that's coming from that really starts doing it. So I don't know if we're going to be out of this, but the vaccines are here. I think the vaccines are going to get better as we go on. They're talking about at the moment that there's a pill now that just got greenlit by the FDA that will help you if you get COVID not go to the hospital. Round one of vaccines is being pushed on us. Not mandated or anything at this point, but it's out there, and they're asking people to do it. They're really kind of hoping people will. I just see that'll be the thing. I don't even see it as a booster. I just see it as your COVID shot. Like it's just like a flu shot. You get your flu shot like once or twice a year, and then you go home. Like
I definitely feel like that's. My sense is that we've basically, like, once Omicron came out, it was like, oh, it's not deadly in the same way that the other ones are deadly. It's very mild in relation to those.
Yeah.
My sense was like, okay, we're like, if this were a story, right? You go, okay, this is like descending action.
Yeah.
We're like. We're getting into denouement. We're going to close out some of these story threads.
I'm just hoping there's no twist coming our way. Where it's like, oh, one of the effects of COVID is like 3 years after you've had it, sudden heart attacks. And it's like, wait, what?
And then everybody,
Yeah, and then we all croak. But if that happens, then, we won't be around to be wrong. So, moving on. I had listed this as Dogecoin predictions because you and I are into Doge, but I'm going to go more on the cryptocurrency front. And I'll let you lead on this one because you're a little bit more of an expert than I am. Where do you see the crypto world headed in the next year?
Like the whole overall thing?
Sure.
two different things I feel like are about to happen. One, we're gonna mass adoption is gonna be happening.
What does that mean?
It's been happening, as in
the general public will be more accepting of.
Yeah, you'll know mass adoption's happening because you'll have like aunts and uncles ask you about like, hey, Jow, you're into cool stuff. You're into the hip thing. Like, how
Tell
do
me
I
about the Dogecoin, the Dogecoin. What is it called?
Exactly.
The one with the dog, the dog coin.
How do I open one of those wallets there? You know, like that's when you realize like mass adoption's happening. And for me, like, I've definitely been having more conversations with about that, like cousins. Like Christmas this year, I was talking with some cousins about it, and so it's clearly on their radar. You know, they're thinking about it. They're paying attention to the news about it, and they're taking it seriously, at least in the sense that, like, hey, you know, maybe this is a possibility for me to make money through it. That's step one, right? And then as you learn, for me, at least from my perspective, because I'm kind of into crypto. I want to be somewhat invested in it as I go forward in the future. I think it has a lot of use cases that are going to be incredibly helpful for me in my life. And in some ways, I'm using it already on like a day-to-day basis. But that's secret. I'm not going to go further into that. But maybe next year when we do this when we do the follow-up episode,
you can update us on where you're at with something.
But the other thing that's happening is like there's also a counter current of people who are really like against it. Like they think it's bad. They don't want it to be there on a bunch of different levels, right? Like
we're going back to the topic of fear over here.
Yes, exactly. Because you have a lot of people in the government who have a lot of skepticism about it, or also just don't like it because it makes it much more difficult to regulate on a tax framework, right? Like that was one of the major pitch points for something like Bitcoin, right? It was like you could kind of dodge taxes and build wealth. Well, government is starting to get trying to get a hold of that. So we're going to start, like, I think the biggest point that's going to happen is when you hear in the news, like, massive regulations happening for cryptocurrency, at which point you actually have people who understand how it works come into those heads of office and say, okay, this is how we're going to tax cryptocurrency. This is how we're going to utilize it within our own branches of government, how we're going to utilize it nationwide. That's when it goes berserk. And that's where a lot of people feel like it's going towards. So, we
don't have a new administration coming in 2022, so you don't think there's going to be too big of a change yet, right?
I'm looking too far ahead into the future. You're right. For 2022, I think it's going to be a boring year.
Okay.
Overall, that does not mean that there isn't going to be like another big pump or stuff like that. There's always, it's the kind of technology where it's like development is so rapid, and all it takes is for somebody to create a cool use case for any of those different things. And this is where it gets complex because then you have to get into like all the different networks, right? So like there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's Dogecoin. Ethereum is part of like a collection of cryptocurrencies that are like the networks. So like people like Ethereum because that's where you do all the NFT marketplace stuff. And you buy and sell, you know, NFT art pieces and whatever. Right? That's going to keep growing. People love it. People are engaged with it, and they're finding more use cases for it. Nevertheless, I kind of sidetracked myself, and I swear we'll resolve all this, but I've been doing a lot of research on this shit. My point is, there have been a lot of people who don't want it to exist, and not just like government officials, but just like regular ass people on the internet, because they have a lot of fears about how, based off of bad knowledge or bad information, but they have a lot of fears that it's going to have negative impacts on the environment because of how much energy usage goes into like doing transactions for Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff like that. All that gets resolved. I don't think it's going to get resolved in 2022, but in the near future. Like they're trying to make those systems more and more efficient so that everybody can use it, right? Because that's the whole point. So anyway, going into Dogecoin, right? Dogecoin is like in a weird position because, first of all, its popularity is sort of pegged to whatever the fuck Elon Musk says.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
I had made a prediction on the night that he showed up on Saturday Night Live because, like, it's gonna dump tonight. I hate to admit this to myself, it's gonna dump tonight because Saturday Night Live is such a shitty show. But that's beyond the scope of this episode. But nevertheless, it was so corny and cheesy, and then like Elon Musk just like did the whole like he called it a hustle, right? He called cryptocurrency a hustle, and that was the moment where everybody just dumped their Dogecoin. So it like went from like 75 cents to I don't know where it was, like 20 or 25 cents, right? So going forward in the future, here's the good news. It hasn't dipped below. Well, it dipped below 20 cents. But
it's currently sitting at like 19. It's been at like 17, 19, somewhere in there the last couple weeks.
It's maintaining a stable base.
It is.
Which is better than most shit coins. So, and then Elon Musk has also, talked about how he wants to use it to buy and sell, or to sell certain Tesla products. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, you can apparently buy Pornhub memberships with Dogecoin. You can buy Newegg products with Dogecoin. You can buy, if you want to buy a Dallas Mavericks jersey, you can do it with Dogecoin. You can go see AMC movies with Dogecoin. A personal interest of mine for various reasons. So this is actually another thing that I think is really interesting that's happening is you're almost getting like these weird, like, I'm trying to look for a good word for it, but like partnerships, these collaborations between all these sort of meme entities. Like, AMC and GameStop both are working with Dogecoin to make payments because they recognize that people have a fervent, they want to have their community currency, which is part of the appeal of cryptocurrency. And so they're trying to make the most out of the moment because otherwise, they really risk going bankrupt. So they're just trying to pull everything they can. Anyway, I think Dogecoin's will 2022 be the year that Dogecoin hits $1? I will give it 75% chance.
Wow.
That's 75% chance because the thing is the fundamentals of it have only improved and they haven't gotten worse. So really the only reason its price has dived like it has because just fewer people are using it right now. But as you see it get wrapped into more and more things, it creates what's called there's this thing called Metcalfe's law that all the crypto nerds like to talk about. And it's this idea that the value of the system exponentiates the more connections there are in the overall network. So that doesn't mean you can't have crashes at times, which is what's happened to Dogecoin, right? Mm-hmm. But the overall number of users on the network, I mean, it's about, last time I checked, it was 4 million. So as long as that number increases, I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but it's very highly likely, which is why I say 75% chance.
That's interesting. First of all, before I even weigh in on anything, I need to point out that neither Rainwater nor I are financial advisors.
Yeah.
Or any of that legal mumbo jumbo nonsense. So don't listen to anything that we say when doing stock investments and such.
Something
we are
just
talking.
WDB.
We are two art nerds just talking.
Exactly.
We're looking at the base roots of people. It's kind of, people really like to equate investments in crypto and stuff like that to gambling. And if you ask any good gambler, most of the time, yes, most of them are good at math and know how to read probability and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of them will tell you sometimes, depending on the game, you're reading the people at the table. You're reading the the guy across from you, and that's really what you're playing. So it's the same thing with the stock market, in my opinion. You're looking at how people are reacting to certain things. Now, my dad, I'm not even going to say crypto. I'm just going to say online banking. The man doesn't like to do online banking. He does not like to look at his checking account online. He's so paranoid. My in-laws, exactly the same way. Like, they are very much firmly rooted in balancing a checkbook by hand and a calculator. And you know what I mean? Like, they do not want to be logging into nothing because they're so afraid of it being hacked. Once again, talking about how fear influences people's motivations and actions. I feel like crypto, Dogecoin, the meme stocks, I guess is kind of what we're talking about, can go one of two ways. It was either a beginning of a seasonal thing. And this is also going to tie into the second option, but it's January, February when a lot of that stuff went really crazy last year. And
I like where you're going with
it's cold weather and people aren't really going out. They don't really have much to do. Let's be honest, in January and February, there's not really good movies coming out. There's not a lot of TV on. I'm serious. Like, the ways to entertain yourself are kind of limited. Now, so it could become a seasonal thing where in the early parts of the year, in the cold part, when you're not saving money for holidays like Christmas and stuff like that, now, like, all that stuff's cleared away now. So now your wallet is free. You don't have to worry about buying gifts for your aunt and uncle and your mom and dad and the kids and all this and that. You have a little bit more play money, so to speak. So I could see it becoming a seasonal thing where pumps and all that kind of stuff start happening in January, and it becomes like a perennial type event where it's like, that's what we do in January, February. Like, in the summer, we go to the beach, and, you know, in the fall, we go apple picking. Like, in January, February, we look at our investments. It's that time of year. But the other factor that plays into this was that was doubled the lockdownness of being stuck in the cold last year because of COVID. We didn't have the vaccine, and it was getting worse. It was, you know what I mean? Like, it was snowballing. So everybody was really locked down at home with nothing to do. And we were sick of everything by then. We had read the books in our houses. We had scoured the internet of all the porn sites that we could. Like, we needed something new to do. It was so boring, and movies weren't even coming out in general. Like, we had nothing. So it's possible that it was a fluke, and it was because of that double lockdownness that that's why it occurred. And also because people needed to make money. A lot of people got laid off because of COVID and this and that, or they had the extra money from the what is it called? The checks that we got from the government.
Stimulus.
Stimulus. I almost called the systemic checks. I wish they were systemic.
Yeah, they might be one day.
But yeah, the stimulus was extra money for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, if they weren't uprooted from their job or anything like that, and they couldn't go to the casino. Online gambling really hadn't taken over as much as it has in the past year, but it has now.
That is an interesting trend too that is worth talking about too, because sports betting is now becoming this huge thing all over the country. So, like, what you're talking about is also, there's a pretty good argument against my argument, quite frankly.
I wasn't what I was trying to do, but
unless Caesar's Playbook is like, hey, we'll accept Dogecoin bets, then that's really great news, right? Like, I'm buying more Dogecoin, but
it'll be interesting to see how the next 2 months shake out, especially but you know what? It's also, once again, we are in unstable times. You really can't measure anything right now, because even though Omicron, scientifically speaking, has been proven not to be all that deadly, especially to people who have been vaccinated or boosted or whatever, there's still an element of fear in the air, because the number one thing that they keep saying about it, which is true, is that they don't know everything about it yet. They don't know how it affects long term and yada yada yada. for the most part, they kind of do. But for the lawyers in the room, they can't say that because they don't want to say the wrong thing and get sued. And that's how the world works on fucking everything.
You're totally right about that, because there is a huge atmosphere of cautiousness that still exists. Even, I mean, like, Louisiana, almost nobody wears a mask now, but, like, there's still, like, I don't know, the general habits now of people are definitely, even if they're not wearing a mask in public, they're, like, sanitizing their hands, they're being more careful about what they're doing in terms of just, like, general contact stuff.
Yeah.
Because they have, like, that. There's now that, like all the for lack of a better term, all the trauma of COVID has kind of like crept into everybody's mind, basically.
Yeah. But see, the problem is we're on Omicron now. It's just coming up on January. By February, we might be at Sierra or something. You know what I mean? And, And at that point, if we have like a lockdown again, you know, people might once again turn to investing and doing this and that. And, you know, there's people who learned. I never was in the stock market at all until I got locked down, and I learned how to do it. So now I know how to do it. So if I have extra money, I know how to save it there, and I make more money doing that than I do putting it in a saving account. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen it go up, and I know when to take out now. I know how to research something. Like, I've educated on it in a way I was never before. I was scared to touch it.
You know what's really fascinating about that is it's actually caused this huge trend, this whole sea change, basically, in the whole stock market. Like, there are hedge funds that are going under because they weren't able to predict this happening. They just didn't see it coming.
The retail investors.
Yeah. And so, like, it's totally thrown them for a loop, and thrown a whole bunch of big name investors for a loop, because we operate on different levels. A, because we're stupid. B, because we're like, you know, we're motivated by things outside of just like profits, but
we
also
don't
like,
look at the quarterly earnings. We say, "Oh, that logo looks funny. I like that. Here's $1,000 of mine." Like, and that's the way. And they don't like that because that's that volatile unpredictability that they can't control. And I get that. Like, they don't like the money, but fuck you. Like I can invest for any reason that I want. It's not really because of anything that I can be whatever I want. And if I want to throw away my money, I can throw away my money. And if that fucks you, it's like when you're, again, gambling. You're sitting at a table and you double down on a hand and the guy next to you gets pissed off because you're fucking up the cards for him. And it's like, dude, I'm not playing for you. And you know what I mean? Like, they're going to be upset because you're pushing your luck for something that you're probably not going to get, and you might be fucking something up for them. But I'm not playing for you. I'm playing for me. And if that fucks you, tough shit. Like, that's why last year there was going to be a fucking riot in the street with that whole Robin Hood thing, where they froze trades and this and that. That was like, there was some Dark Knight Rises shit about to go down there. But getting back to the point about like the cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff, it'll be interesting to see if it's now a seasonal thing. But I don't think we can predict it yet because we're not done with COVID, and COVID is kind of what started all of this. So it's going to be one of those two routes. I think this next year, I think people are going to be restrained. I don't think we're going to see the kind of pumps that we saw last year and stuff. I think we're going to be, we're still kind of coasting out of it. And I think after we've come back to the new norm in the next couple of years, hopefully, it'll be one of those things that comes back around when we get bored. When it'll be like,
that is a good thing to point out, is like we're still trying to get into a new norm. And quite honestly, one of the best like things to look at to sort of figure out like what is the timeline or what it might look like is to look at what happened in Southeast Asia during like the SARS pandemics.
Okay.
Or epidemics. Because those were like COVID, the one that we're dealing with now, is a SARS type. It's related to SARS, right? Similar habits by which it spreads, similar sort of effects. I will say that I've noticed in Louisiana something very similar that I saw as I was watching like culture develop in Japan over years, is you would have more and more people just voluntarily wearing masks after the SARS epidemic passed, because they had that thought in their mind, like, I don't want to take that chance, And so you're going to see plenty of that around the United States. You're going to see plenty of people adopt that attitude, because it is that attitude of just like, I just don't want to take the chance of passing something to somebody
that's
else.
the thing. Like, I've never had a problem with people wearing masks. I think, do you. It's when the Twitter mobs start screaming at you that you're supposed to be wearing a mask and this and that. And like, I'm trying to, it's not debated amongst the scientific community that wearing a mask protects you from getting COVID. It doesn't. That is a known thing. It helps you reduce the spread to others. Yeah. It doesn't protect you. And a lot of people see it as a way to protect themselves. And it's that one of those things, it's like, this is readily available information that's undisputed amongst the scientific community. Does it help? Probably a little bit, like a tiny, like an inconsequential amount. But people operate in fear. And that's the thing, and they're going to continue. And that's why I think people, if you feel safer doing it, if it's like a security blanket or an emotional support dog or something like that, I say go for it, man. Wear your mask as much as you want, where you want, however you want. Get the oxygen breather ones, walk around with your welding mask on. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I'm in this position now where, like, now I'm just very choosy about where I wear a mask. Like, if I don't want to be acknowledged or recognized in any sort of way, I'm like, I'm going to wear a mask. Fuck it. Like, I don't really want to deal with it right now.
I'm the guy that I walk around without a mask on. It's weird because here in Connecticut, it's a very liberal place. I'm vaccinated. I'm due for my booster very soon, and I'm probably going to go get that. I don't have any problem with that. But there's pockets of places where it's very conservative. It's really weird. And you can go from one store to another and everybody will be masked, and then like one or two people will be masked outside of the employees. And it's really weird around here as to like who you're interacting with and this and that. Now, I haven't had any problem, people shooting dirty looks or anything like that. To be honest, even if they were, I didn't notice. I don't care. I'm here to get my bread.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really here for anybody else. I'm polite to people. I say, excuse me. I try to keep 6 feet away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not crazy an asshole about it and marching around saying people shouldn't wear masks. I don't feel like it, man. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't operate in the fear way, one way or the other. I don't feel like I should be demanding people take it off because, people can rob people now and and I don't feel like people should, be shamed into wearing them either. It's a personal choice, and it's as simple as that. But I don't operate in fear, and I refuse to do that. Now, if it comes out and they say, hey, you have to wear a mask, it's mandated, then I'll wear a mask. It's literally that simple. I've got, like, if I'll go into a store, if it says, please wear a mask, that you're giving me a choice. It's my decision. If you say you are required to wear a mask, I got one in my back pocket at all times. And you know what I mean? Right. And that's just how I operate. And I think in the next year, I think more and more people will wear less and less masks. I think that's how we're going to go. I think we'll reach a point where the people who will go to their grave, and I don't mean because of COVID, I mean because of like old age, like they will be in their 90s and they're in their 40s now, wearing a mask will be those people. You know what I mean? Like how you talked about with Asia, they just wear it because they want to wear it. And I think that's fine. But I think more and more people are just saying, I'm going to roll the dice. Like, I'm tired of wearing the mask. It's hot, especially in the summer. Like in the winter, I don't mind wearing the mask sometimes outside because I'm just like, you know what?
Yeah, it's pretty logical.
It helps keep the wind out of my face. Fine, I'll fucking wear it. But I think more and more people are going to be taking their masks off. As long as they keep getting the vaccine and the boost or whatever and all that stuff, I think we're fine. But I think that's kind of how it will go. All right, let's get into something a little bit more fun. Movie predictions.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to read off a couple of movies that are going to come out this year, and I want your input on how they're going to perform.
Okay.
Or how they might influence, what's the word? The
ether.
The society.
The culture.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have, so don't ask me for synopsises. I don't have synopsises. First and foremost, movie that I'm looking forward to very much, January 14th, Scream, the remake, or the reboot, I should say, because it has, quote unquote, the new buzzword legacy characters, but it's a whole new cast.
That's a funny idea. You know, I think that's going to do really well, and I'm basing this off of the fact that a bunch of older stuff, Scream was 90s, right?
96.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of stuff from the 90s like take off lately. Seinfeld is like having a resurrection. Before that, Friends was having a resurrection. Like 90s sitcoms are really big, especially for our particular generation for obvious reasons, right?
Yep.
You know, like we're all starting to have some amount of spending money, and so, you know, we're spending to go, you know, watch those shows or see those movies. And I suspect that Scream was a pretty big thing on everybody's list growing up, except for me, for whatever reason. But I think I'm pretty sure enough people that it's going to be quite a turnout when it comes out.
I think it's going to do okay. I don't think it's going to be the box office smash that everybody's thinking it's going to be. I'm not singling out you. I just, there's a lot of people that are on a big hype train, and I should be the conductor on the hype train. But
you're not.
I'm not. You know what?
I mean, you technically are going to be in a couple of days, but
listen. Oh well, yeah. No, I mean, I bought tickets already. I bought tickets for 3 separate showings to go see it. Like, I know I have to see it at least 3 times.
Damn, you were prepared. Holy crap.
There's no way I'm not going to go see it, because the first time I'm going just to be entertained, take it in.
Yeah.
The second time I'm going to go back and I'm going to be dissecting it about, why did I not like it, or why did I love it so much, and kind of giving it a second shake where it's like, oh, this is a different audience. It'll be a different vibe in the room. Maybe I'll like it more. Yeah. Maybe I'll see it's for its true flaws. Like, it could go either way. The third one will be the complete analytical breakdown where I'll be like, okay, now I get why this sucks, like, or why this is amazing. It'll be one way or the other. So they're going to make some money off of people like me, but I don't think there's a lot of people like me like there are for like Spider-Man or shit like that, like Marvel movies. There's not going to be that many repeaters. So I think it'll do decent.
Is Scream 4 is it also a streaming, like, simultaneous release? Is it only...
First off, it's Scream 5, technically. It's not, you said Scream 4. It's Scream 5, even though it's called Scream, and it's not a reboot because it contains the characters from the first 4 movies, and it continues their stories. I don't understand why they fucking do that, but maybe they'll explain it in the movie. That's the beauty of the meta-ness of Scream. What was your question?
My question was, what was my question? No, what was my question? My question was, is Scream...
If only we could rewind this podcast right now.
Yeah, okay, I had multiple questions, so I can find another one. Do you think that the fact that it's going to be released in January...
I don't remember what your question was.
What was my original question?
If it had a streaming release.
Yes.
It does not, as far as I know.
So that's going to have a big impact, too, on audience turnout.
I was thinking about that today, though, because it's being released by Paramount, which does have a streaming service. It's like the one that no one has, Paramount Plus. So I could see them changing their mind just because of the Omicron and everybody being kind of cautious about that and being like, guess what? We are going to put it out on Paramount Plus after all, to which I will probably cancel 2 out of the 3 screenings and sign up for Paramount Plus just so I could watch it a dozen times.
Sure.
But I don't know if that's going to happen. But at the moment, it does not have a streaming release going on.
Yeah, so that could have a big impact on the screenings. And then the other one was the fact that it's a January movie. could have a negative impact on turnout, right?
That's usually where the dumpster fires go. I think they're trying to hope for a get out scenario, and I don't think this is the right situation to do this. If anything, I think they should have put this movie out in June or September. I know they didn't want to compete with Halloween, which is smart. But I don't think January was the right call for this, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get proven wrong. Who knows? The next movie is a Marvel movie technically, but it's actually a Sony movie, which is Morbius, the Jared Leto vampire movie. Personally, I don't see much happening for this movie.
Me too. I think it's going to be a flop.
Yeah. There's a new Roland Emmerich movie coming out called Moonfall.
Oh shit, I forgot about that movie. It's probably not going to do that great, though.
I don't think so either. It's coming out in February.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign. That's not a good
especially because Roland Emmerich films are like summer blockbuster movies.
Yeah, that should be in like June or July. Yeah. I don't see that being anything. Same thing with February. There's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out. However, it's coming out on Netflix. So that could be okay for Netflix. I can see that being okay. Now, this is the next movie I want to talk about. This is where I'm going to have a hot take.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
The Batman with Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I just want to put out on the record, I don't think this movie's going to do well. I don't think it's going to do... I think it'll do decent. I think it'll put up the same numbers that Scream will put up. I feel like there's a lot of talk amongst the comic book movie community, like that kind of corner of pop culture, where they talk about superhero fatigue. I don't think it's superhero fatigue. I think it's Batman fatigue. I think everybody is fucking tired of Batman, and I'm one of the biggest Batman people ever, and you'll vouch for this. And I couldn't give a shit. I'm not excited at all. Like I should be, because I like Matt Reeves' movies. I don't have any problem with any of his movies. They've all been entertaining. In fact, they've been surprisingly entertaining, where I sat down to watch a Planet of the Apes movie and thought, this is going to be so bad. And then not only did I have a good time, I was like, wow, that was really good, actually. That was not like, oh, I want to see the next one. It was more like, that was a damn fine movie. That was well thought out, well written, well acted, well everything. Whereas I look at the trailers for this and I'm just like, like...
It doesn't excite me, that's for sure. But I it's one of those things where I'm assuming I'm not the target audience for this movie, but I can't figure out who the target audience is other than Batman fans.
Well, because, and that's the thing though, is like, I feel like that franchise is not only destroyed at the moment, and I don't blame Ben Affleck, I blame Zack Snyder, but I feel like the franchise itself is destroyed because of the mess that is the whole DC universe right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? The whole thing is literally a mess. Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman. What's-his-face is... Robert Pattinson is Batman. And then you have a standalone Joker with Joaquin Phoenix that might have a sequel. And there's a little kid Batman in that. Like, he's not Batman, but he's Bruce Wayne in that. And that, they're talking about a sequel to that. And so that's going to be its own thing. So, like, you've got like 20 different Elseworlds now where Batman exists, and it stops feeling special, and it starts feeling like the mess that comic books entered at one point, where it's like, I don't know which thread I'm following at any given point, and I don't want to have to watch 6 TV show episodes to understand something that's happening in a movie that I'm going to see. And
I'm going to bring up a weird comparison here.
Go.
So Marvel and Disney is like the Catholic Church, and DC Warner Brothers is like the Protestant Church. Like,
you're going to have to explain that to me, because I don't understand that at all.
Marvel, Disney, they have done their damnedest to streamline all these characters to where you have one actor plays that character in every movie. You have all these movies tied together. They've try to take all of this Marvel lore and history and whatever and just make like one semi-coherent narrative.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing that the Catholic Church did through the Nicene Creed to make sure that here's the Bible, this is what it looks like, this is how we interpret it. We don't go outside of these lines, we have these rules set ubiquitously from church to church. Protestantism, you go to a Baptist church, you go to an evangelical church, you go to an Episcopalian church, you get a totally different version of the story no matter where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with DC Warner Bros. You got different actors playing Batman. You got different interpretations of the character of Batman. You got different interpretation of all the other characters. Like, there's no coherent timeline.
Right.
Everything like metaphorical and just like, what are we doing here? So like, for DC Warner Brothers, it's not really working out in the way that they're telling that story, because comic book narratives work better the more coherent all those particular things are. Or you have to like be very concise about what kind of stories you're going to put out there. You know what I mean? Like like what you're saying, I feel like, is that they've overloaded the pool. Like there's just too much of of too many different things that people don't know what they're going to go see anymore. And
I don't care.
Yeah.
There's no investment.
Well, that's what creates that feeling of not caring. Not that isn't happening for Marvel in a similar way. Like, it's just different, because what it is like with Marvel, it's like you lose interest over time because you're like, well, okay, here we go. We're continuing the storyline. Here's the thing. After Endgame, it's like nothing's going to top it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so like, what?
The new Spider-Man movie came pretty damn close.
I have to go see that movie still, so I guess I shouldn't speak on that necessarily.
I was very much on the same mindset of you, where I felt like I had no interest in upcoming Marvel movies. Like, I did not see Eternals. Did not resonate with me in the slightest. Shang-Chi, I had no rush to go to the theaters to see. I did check it out on Disney Plus, and it was exactly what I expected it to be. I didn't care for it, but I didn't hate it at the same time.
Yeah.
But then I'm looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? Blade is coming, and Mahershala Ali is playing Blade, and I'm kind of excited for that because I know Blade. And then they're finally going to welcome the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe, which I'm all about seeing how that can work, because I've been dying for them to get that fucking franchise right for a while now.
Because in the past, Fantastic Four has been the cursed movie franchise.
Right. So you know what I mean? Like, I have no interest in Captain Marvel. I've watched all of the Marvel TV shows, and I think out of like the 5 or 6 that are, I liked like 2 of them. And so that was kind of like hit and miss for me. And it's gotten to the point where there are things that I look forward to, and I know what they are. And the other things that I haven't, unless I hear big people talking them up, you know what I mean? Like going crazy happy for it, then I'm just going to pass. Like I have a Disney Plus subscription. I can wait. And if I'm bored one afternoon and I just want to throw on whatever movie I haven't seen yet, I'll do it. But I've gotten to the point where I know the formula of the Marvel movies, where it's like, I don't really need to know this to know what's happening in another movie. You know what I mean? It's nice. Yeah. It's nice to have that information, but I don't need it to understand what's going on. It's not dependent. So I don't know. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they do that over the next couple of years. I don't know. I think they're going to pull Spider-Man to the front. I think they're going to keep the known characters as the front runners. Blade, Deadpool. They'll probably reboot X-Men if they have to, but I think they're going to try and hold off on X-Men as long as they can to kind of give some room between the Fox franchise and their franchise, which is weird because I know that they want to make a Deadpool movie still with Ryan Reynolds. So how they'll do that, I don't know. But the whole multiverse thing, he can just hop out of that and into this one now. So
that's why they're introducing it into
probably so they can write themselves out of some plot holes. Absolutely. So yeah, I don't think we're seeing big things for Batman. Maybe we're wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What else is coming up? Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
I think it's actually going to do really well.
I never saw the first one, but people in the theater when the trailer dropped seemed to be kind of genuinely excited about it. So maybe I need to get on board.
I saw the first one. It's a fine movie. I mean, I wasn't blown away by it or anything, but I'm also not the target audience for it. For the target audience it was for, it blew them the fuck away, and people really loved that movie. And it really resonated in internet culture for at least a month or more after that, because I got so annoyed by all the like sexy Dr. Robotnik pics everybody was drawing. So like, it's clear on everybody's radar, and they're very excited about it. Because as a sequel, they're also like, they're doing a decent job of trying to make it a sequel by like, they're introducing Tails and Knuckles. They're expanding on everything. They're not just going to like do the same thing quite the same way over again.
That was kind of that movie benefited from the pandemic in a way that no one ever could have seen coming, because it was the last movie to come out before all the movie theaters shut down. So yeah, they took benefits from that. Fantastic Beasts. I think the hardcore Harry Potter fan base is going to show up, and no one else.
That's it.
That's about it.
I don't know who that movie's made for.
Yeah. Doctor Strange. I think that movie's going to be bigger now because of Spider-Man than I did think it was going to be before. So I think there's going to be good things. I don't think it's going to pull in Spider-Man numbers, but I think it'll do much better than I originally anticipated just because of that. Top Gun Maverick, I think that's in trouble.
I have no clue about that one. I mean, I was surprised to hear people talk about they were anticipating it and excited for it because they loved Top Gun.
I feel like the 5 years of watching trailers for it now has been it's you got to anticipate at some point and pull the trigger, and I think they waited too long.
Yeah.
Thor: Love and Thunder. I haven't seen anything for this movie yet. I don't think there's a trailer or anything out. I think there might be a poster. I don't know. I'm not big on the Taika Waititi Thor movies. So
he's directing this one then?
He's writing and directing it, and then also you have to keep in mind Natalie Portman is playing female Thor, and that's gonna rally up a lot of the, I don't want to call them incels, but like the anti-woke culture.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the people who hate wokeness for the sake of wokeness are gonna flip the bird to this movie, like they did like Ghostbusters 2016, and like I think I don't know how this is gonna play out, but I do not see good things for Thor, because that's the fan base, and like it or not, they are kind of misogynistic at times.
Yeah,
but
is it the same people who saw Ragnarok? I guess is my question, because Ragnarok did really well from what I understand, and I'm going on the assumption that people are going to be like, oh, Taika Waititi's doing another one. Awesome. I'm going to show up for it.
See,
maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. Me and the people, the crowd that I went to with, the crowd was genuinely having fun with the movie. The people that I went with, the 3 or 4 people that accompanied me, were all on the same page of, this is fucking stupid. Like, I don't think this is funny. I'm not being entertained by it. Like, it's not what I expect when I watch a Thor movie. Like, I expect like a good, dramatic, like not boring like the first like couple Thor movies were, where it's just very rooted in Shakespeare wannabiness. But I want something more epic and less comedic when I go to a Thor movie. So I don't know if I'm a minority in that particular response.
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I know that I've liked them all. Ragnarok stuck with me a little bit more, largely because of the soundtrack.
That's fair.
Was about it.
That's fair. Black Adam, which is The Rock's DC movie.
I don't think it's going to do very good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
There's too many things going against it other than The Rock.
Yeah.
I don't think he can save it.
Warner Brothers is taking a shot with Salem's Lot in September, trying to fill the place of It. Because there's no more It movies. So I think they're trying to go with another big Stephen King thing where they can kind of milk a couple years out of it. I don't know how that's going to play out. There's no real stars that I'm seeing here in the cast lineup. William Sadler's in it, but I don't know what part he's playing. I'm assuming he's playing the the one guy that's in the rocking chair and all that kind of stuff, and I don't see that. That's not a big role, and he's not a big name amongst anybody who's not like an actor nerd. Mission Impossible 7. I don't think 2 Tom Cruise movies in the same year is going to fare well.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think Mission Impossible 7 will do better in the box office than Top Gun.
I would agree with that because I have liked the Mission Impossible movies as of late, and it's Christopher McQuarrie who's done the last couple is directing again, so I think that one's on some pretty solid ground. But they really need to do something new with that franchise quick, because I don't know, it's they haven't killed off anybody in a while. They killed Alec Baldwin in the last one, but I don't think that was enough. I think they need to off like either Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, Rebecca Ferguson. One of them has to bite the dust in this movie in order for it to have some kind of weight. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, which is the animated Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man multiverse, Enter the Multiverse one, was actually a really good movie.
Yeah.
I see that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are writing this one, so I'm accepting that they will probably write a good one. I think they wrote the first one too. I don't know if the directors are the same people or not, but you've got Haley Steinfeld, Oscar Isaac, Jake Johnson in this movie, so that means a lot of like they're repeating like the other Peter Parker and stuff. So
I didn't even realize the sequel was happening, so I'm pretty pumped because I loved the first movie. It was pretty awesome.
I think that's going to do surprisingly well. That's a good kids movie. We'll see how the pandemic is at that time, but we'll see how it goes. Halloween Ends. Shocking to me how well Halloween Kills went over, but it was also very divisive. So, is it just divisive in the fact that people want to bitch about it, but they'll still go see it because it's Michael Myers? It's one of those weird loyalties people have to a character in a franchise. So I don't know what's going to happen with Halloween Ends. I don't think it'll pull up as much as Halloween Kills did. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. Then again, I said the same thing about Halloween Kills, but that was before the pandemic really was fucking with stuff, so who knows. November 4th, The Flash. I don't know how to make out this one because it's Michael Keaton's return as Batman. So the hype on this is TBD.
Is there a different actor playing the Flash?
Nope, still Ezra Miller. They're doing a whole multiverse thing where he's going to do like enter the Speed Force and come out through different multiverses. So
I'm hoping what this leads to is eventually, like with all these fucking multiverses, that we have the DC Marvel crossover at some point.
You joke, but you know something? Kevin Feige's been asked about it, and he said he would 100% do it, and he knows how he would do it.
Prediction. 2023, we get a drop for a trailer for the first DC Marvel multiverse film.
I'm here for it. Just as long as Marvel's in control. And I'm a DC guy saying that. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This is a tough one.
I don't know.
Because
Chadwick Boseman's not going to be in it.
Right.
So...
They're doing it as an ensemble of the Wakandans. Here's the weird thing about it. I liked Shuri, Black Panther's sister, in the first movie. Then, from social media and everything, we kind of find out that Letitia White is one of those anti-vax, crazy type people, I believe. I think that's what it was. And there was a real big backlash against her for that or something else. I forget what it was specifically. But I know that there's like a significant portion of people, at least on Twitter, that are not fans of hers anymore. And I don't know, outside of Michael B. Jordan, what people would be excited about. Like, the other supporting characters are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they can carry a movie. And it'll be interesting to see what goes on because here's the thing. I'm a giant fan of Ryan Coogler, who wrote and directed the first one. He wrote and directed the Creed movie, Fruitvale Station. Like, he's a great writer-director. So if anybody can surprise me, like, I have faith in him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just don't see this working. Because
Boseman really carried that.
He was really charming. Yeah. Like, everybody loved him. I don't.
They are going to have to pull something out of their ass in order to make it, to bring it all together. That's for sure.
I feel like this will be a one-off thing, and then they'll pull some multiverse shit where Michael B. Jordan was the Black Panther in another multiverse, and he'll come in and he'll be the thing. Or I don't. You know what? To be honest with you, I've been saying since the beginning of time, or since Chadwick Boseman passed, that I could see them recasting T'Challa with what's his name from Star Wars, the sequel franchise.
John Boyega.
Yes, I could see him playing that role.
Oh yeah, for sure. He'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
And I don't think anybody would have a problem with it. And that's the thing about it. Like I was kind of curious to know why they didn't recast Chadwick in the first place. And maybe it's because they want to do a multiverse thing, so it's respectful of his legacy and everything. So who knows?
Yeah.
But that would be the money that I would put on it. Speaking of Michael B. Jordan, Creed 3.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that was happening.
Also being directed by Michael B. Jordan.
Interesting.
The only thing that's I don't know. There's nothing about this movie that really could get. I mean, they've settled the Ivan Drago business. I don't know what else there is.
If it follows the legacy of Rocky.
I don't think Sylvester Stallone's not involved. He's not going to be in it.
No, I mean like in terms of the movies, like 1 and 2 were great. And
so this is going to be like Rocky 5. All right.
3's not that great, and then 4 is pretty fun.
So I'm going to skip one. We're going to do 2 quick ones, and then we're going to come back to the one that I want to end on. Okay. There is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I don't think that's going to do well.
It might do about as well as the first one. I think
it'll do as well as the first one internationally. For some reason, that first movie hit well on the international thing. Domestically, not so much. I don't know what it is about the international crowds that they loved it so much, but they did. I think they will come back for it, but I don't see it doing very well domestically. All right, here we go. Second to last movie, the Mario movie with Chris Pratt playing Mario.
Oh God! You know what? Nintendo has been doing a better job of like licensing out their movies. I think it's going to do well.
Okay.
I think everybody's going to be surprised by how well Chris Pratt does Mario. Because he gets into his roles, and he has a sense of fun.
That's the thing. The fun is what's going to draw the people to this.
Yes.
And it's coming out at Christmas.
Oh, okay. Well, that's going to be a big hit then.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big release.
With no other competition that particular weekend. It comes out December 21st. So it's
Pressure's going to be on because it's going to have to deal. It'll be following in the tails of Sonic 2, basically.
Now, here's the only thing that might be able to dethrone it. And I am going to go ahead and say I have not seen the original for this. But on December 16th, going up against Aquaman, we are finally getting Avatar 2.
That's right. Who cares? No.
Exactly. I've never seen the first one, so I really can't gauge anything here, but supposedly it's happening. So I don't know.
That's like because James Cameron was trying to turn that thing into a whole big series. It's just like
there's 6 of them, and he's already shot like 4 of them.
Damn. That's like, okay, you know what that feels like? That's like when they made another X-File movies, like a decade after X-Files was all done and nobody gave a shit about X-Files anymore. It's like, okay, why are we doing this? Like, who knows? I've heard a lot of people still really love Avatar. I'm not the target audience, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to do as well as they originally did. I think the technology of wowing people with that kind of tech
after Endgame, like
James Cameron, but I don't know, man. It's James Cameron. You really gotta watch yourself when you're betting against him. It's really interesting. That man can surprise you with the utmost perfect quality. So I don't want to count him out, but as terms of judging the franchise, flop. Looking at Cameron, has a shot. Like, that's a tough one to call. All right. We had more topics that we researched.
We could do it lightning round style.
All right, lightning round style. The craziest thing that might happen in the next 12 months. What do you think is going to happen?
Okay,
the
next
craziest
12 months.
Thing.
The craziest thing that I think could happen is we're going to hear a president of the United States openly talk about unidentified aerial phenomenon.
You said the exact same thing I was going to say. We're going to get confirmation of alien life somewhere on the planet. I don't think we're going to be watching like little green men running around anywhere, and there won't be like interviews on 60 Minutes or nothing like that. But I think that the government will say that they've made contact, or that, something has happened, that it's not human.
There's going to be a very blurry picture released by either the Pentagon or some other branch of the government that will be like the official. It'll be the picture we'll be sick of seeing because we'll see it on everybody's Twitter and Facebook and whatever, and it'll become a meme because we'll be so sick of it.
And the Blink-182 guy will be vindicated, and all will be well in the world. But that could be the thing that ends COVID. The fear about here's the thing though. The fear about COVID could get parlayed. They could be like, where people were afraid of COVID and cautious about COVID, they start getting fearful of the aliens. You're going to see a whole new form of bigotry come out where people will just come like off unbiased things will be like, I bet those aliens there landed into China where the Wuhan was, and that's where we got that virus. It was from Saturn and Uranus, and like that. Like that's the kind of shit that we're going to have to start dealing with.
We're going to totally redefine xenophobia at that point.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we're both on the page about that. We think aliens are happening in some shape, way, or form in the next 12 months.
I mean, if you look at the script, I feel like it's an obvious, like...
Honestly, I felt like Trump was headed there. I think Trump wanted to be like, hey, guys, and then he got cut off. Like, they took the mic from him.
Well, this was the biggest news that happened this year, was that the Pentagon opened its own branch to investigate unidentified aerial phenomenon. So, like, either it's just like a, government sort of like, okay, we'll pretend like we're involved.
I felt like the formation of the Space Force to begin with was the way that they were like, hey guys, like, we're not going to spell it out for you, but hey guys, like, are you looking at what we're doing here?
Yeah, nobody dismantled Space Force. It's still going on, so.
Yeah. So I think that's where we're going. How do you think art is going to skew in the next 12 months?
Oh, God. All right. Try and keep this answer as quick as I can. So the whole NFT thing has really, I was going to say thrown a wrench. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. It's really turned the whole art like community on its head, both bad and good. There are a bunch of people that I know in the comics community who are totally like steadfastly trying to keep it from becoming a thing and infiltrating into comics. That's a losing battle. That's 100% losing battle. Kickstarter, which has been one of the biggest funders of independent comics projects, they're moving their system to slowly just be like a blockchain venture because it just works better for them. I think 2022, here's the shorter answer. 2022 is going to be a year, it's going to be divisive, but I think it's also going to be the year that we actually see like an artistic use case for NFTs that aren't just like some bullshit money-making scheme, right? It's 2022 is the year where you're going to see several people go, oh, fuck, did you hear about that thing that whoever, like some dude created that like totally blew my mind. I didn't even think you could even do this with NFTs, Like I think 2022 is going to be that year. And so I think we're going to see the first like flagship art project happen in the NFT space that will legitimize it and have people actually like, myself included, thinking about like how to go forward with it.
Interesting.
How about you, Joe?
You were thinking more on the business end. I'm thinking more on the artistic end. I like to read the terrain as I describe it to people. With what kind of art is going to flourish. And I feel like if you look back at like box office and stuff, the original Spider-Man came out in May, when September 11th happened this September before. So in that era, that's, you know, that culture, that world, people were looking for clear-cut, good guy, bad guy, good guy's going to win, that reassurance that, you know, good always comes out on top, and that's why that kind of art succeeded there. Yeah. I feel like with everything going on with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, I feel like we're kind of, I think even the people who are very cautious about the pandemic are also coming to grips with things, and they're cautiously exiting that stage of fear. So I feel like art that centers around new beginnings, rebirth, like a fresh, you know, a freshness to it, something that feels like it's, you know, somebody taking a first step into a new life. That kind of art is going to speak to us as a society, and we're going to kind of gravitate towards that, because we're going to be looking for that guidance of how do we handle starting over? How do we handle going in new directions? How do we handle, you know, our perspective and our choices and things like that? So I feel like any kind of art that really touches on that kind of thing is going to blow up. I think that's going to be the thing everybody's going to jump on. It's one of the reasons why I feel Batman is going to be meh, because it's just the same old dreary drab, and I don't think that's what people are looking for now. Whereas
that's a very optimistic thing that you're saying right now, because it gives me some amount of optimism to think that, like, 2022 into 2023, we're going to start seeing more, like, new, like, to use the business term, new IPs.
Yeah.
Or just new stuff being put out there. You know what I mean? Yep. Which I've been waiting for forever.
I think we all are. And that's another thing, is like, once you've beaten the death of existing franchises and stuff like that, eventually people are like, what else you got? And I think that's where we're kind of headed. So I think that's going to be what's the art world is going to skew towards. I
will throw in one last thing in addition to what you're saying. I think we're going to see a resurgence of comedy. Like legit comedy, you know what I mean? Yeah. In the same way that like late 90s had some like art, the whole 90s in general had a bunch of comedies that I think for our generation we all have some idea about them. You know, you have like Wayne's World, Austin Powers. There's a bunch of others that I can't read off the top of my head, but there's a bunch that I can think of that like stand out as being the big movies that we, you know, would quote or, you know, rehash or whatever.
Decade-defining type stuff.
Yeah, and I think we might, I'm hoping, going with what you're saying, I'd love to see that, because I am missing comedy movies in my movie, or just general story diet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's going to happen is we'll have a replacement of the old guard in terms of comedians that get pushed. Like, you saw what happened with Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen's Christmas thing or whatever. Like, everybody was just trashing it. Like, no one defended it. Like, it was just one of those things that crashed and burned. And I feel like the kind of comedy that people will be looking for is Bill Burr. Like, people who are tired and kind of cranky of the status quo and just there and be like, whatever, fuck it. Like, I think Bill Burr is going to be the guy that, like, if you put him in a movie and you let him do his thing, I think that'll be the movie that pops off. And then people will be looking for those types of comedians that, you know, because once it hits, it's like fire. It catches everywhere and you can't get rid of it. But those kinds of comedians are going to start to flourish when, for the last however many years, it's been so preachy and very, you know what I mean? Like, that's not what anybody's, I mean, comedy in itself speaks on topics that are cultural and societal and all that kind of stuff, but it's been very preachy. It's been very, this is how it should be, and that's not comedy. That's a sermon. And there's a reason why churches are going out of business left and right, is because Everybody wants to make up their own mind. So if we're tired of hearing that kind of stuff, we just want the people that are going to make jokes that we can be like, he said he's going to do something terrible. I know he's not going to do that thing. I know he doesn't support that thing. I'm laughing at him. Like those kinds of comedy, I think that's going to flourish. At least I hope. We talked about this a little bit, but you had wanted to talk about tech predictions or the most unexpected tech disruption of 2022. Now, I know you got something to say here, so I just want to
I'm
going to throw out my stupid little thing.
Yeah, you do yours first.
I think the way that we watch movies has changed fundamentally from now on. I don't think the streaming services are going anywhere, and I think that they've had a year where they can test the water safely of releasing things on streaming, and I know that there's plans to continue doing that, and I think the biggest tech disruption is going to be home theater establishments. I think people are going to start investing in home theater setups in ways that they hadn't before. It used to be, here's my big TV, and that was it. Now it's, here's my projector, here's my Dolby Atmos surround sound. Now check out, I've got my theater recliner. Now I've got my mini fridge right here. Look, now I have risers under my recliners. Look, now I've got a stargazing sky above my theater. Like, the improvements people are taking to do things at home are now going to be things that blow up. So I think that the technological thing in terms of 5G, all of that kind of stuff is really going to start to roll where people can just entertain at themselves. Like I talk about all the time about the Joe Bob Briggs thing that I do, the Last Drive-In. It's still communal. We watch a movie simultaneously on Twitter. We're all tweeting at the same time, watching the same live stream. And I think once that started catching on where they schedule, I've talked about this before, they schedule movie showings to stream at certain times where people can live tweet and Facebook while they're watching the movie. That's going to be the change. And I feel like theaters are going to become, what's the word to it's almost like a restaurant. I can cook at home.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But for a special occasion, we'll go to the movies. So I think everything that comes out might come to a theater, but they might start becoming more choosy. It might be a little bit more expensive.
And they're going to be focusing more on live event stuff, on streaming live event stuff.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
The purpose of a theater is going to slowly shift more towards what you would think of as an arena or an auditorium, in the sense that this is a place that we have special events and not just movies.
Yeah,
basically.
I would say so. I mean, but even then, it's tough because you can watch a fight live on Instagram and tweet about it simultaneously, and
it depends on whether or not you want to be in that atmosphere.
But the thing is as time goes on, that's going to diminish because more and more people will be raised to not know that, and they'll not want it. Like, they won't care. The nostalgia factor will kick in, where it's just like, oh, we used to tweet online when we watched movies together. Why would I want to go sit next to some asshole eating popcorn? Like, and that's
never underestimate the curiosity of people though who have never experienced. It's the same way that how vinyl is coming back for records, because you have an entire generation of people who didn't grow up around it, and they're like, oh wait, it sounds different. I want to see what that's about.
It sounds better.
So
yeah.
I guess another way of putting it is it'll probably be a cottage industry where it's like, here's the alternative way of experiencing.
You have a point. I want to make sure that I say this. You do have a point, because there's articles now about how people are pissed off about Spider-Man No Way Home, where it's like, can you people stop screaming and cheering and woohooing at the screen? And no. On YouTube, some of the biggest videos are audience reactions, where it's just like audio of the movie and you're listening to a crowd watch it and how they're hooting and hollering the whole time. And I gotta admit, it's fucking fun being in that atmosphere. It's like going to a sports game. So some movies are going to determine, other movies not so much. And I think we'll start to see a tech disruption in terms of how movies are released, which movies are released, etc. And that's my big postulation for 2022.
My big tech disruption is kind of based on news that I had just read like last week.
Ooh.
So Webtoon had disclosed that they had put a certain amount of investment into the company that creates the software Clip Studio. This is like one of the most widely used like comics creation softwares. I use it.
Sorry.
Speaking of disruption,
I have things going off on my phone, and I was trying to get rid of them, and then it went off. Sorry.
No worries. Clip Studio is something that I use pretty regularly. Everybody who makes webtoon or works in comics in general uses it. So anyway, this is all set up for what I'm about to say. Part of what they invested in was to create an AI software to help in automatically coloring comics. Right? So, here's the thing about coloring. It's one of the most time-consuming parts of the comics creation process outside of drawing and ink. They have just now made this huge step that makes it easier for the creative team on a given comic to be closer to one. Just the writer artist is all the same person is where it keeps going towards.
Yeah.
This is going to be a massive disruption, particularly for print comics, because they are financially struggling, have been financially struggling for decades. And anything that allows them to diminish the size of their teams, they will take it. They will look for people who can do a book as close to solo. You know what I mean? So and guess what? Like Webtoon has a bunch of people, not just Webtoon, but a bunch of other publishers out there have a bunch of people who are doing it solo. So in the comics community, it's going to be a weird boom bust because you're going to see a lot of people complain about how they've lost their jobs in comics because they rely too heavily on just being one particular cog in the machine. And you're going to see a lot of people be super happy because they're suddenly being able to do their dream project, their independent dream project or whatever that they've always wanted to do by themselves. It's a good and bad thing, right? Because there is certainly a lot to be said about being able to have people who, when you work on a team, when you collaborate like that, you get there's a certain additional element that's added to what happens, right? That can make the project better. At the same time, me personally, I look at this and I'm like, great, that's going to shave off time on my production cycle and makes it easier for me to do my work solo. We'll see. I haven't really tried out this AI software yet. It could totally suck, is the thing. It could be totally useless.
Absolutely.
But if it works in the way that Webtoon's trying to approach it, and I understand why they're trying to approach it, it could be a huge boon towards the creation of more and more independent story projects. So anyway, that's my overall prediction for 2022 in terms of tech disruptions affecting art.
All right. Well, we're coming up on 90 minutes. This is one of our big ones. I think this was kind of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how we turn out next year. But we'll see. I'm not holding my breath on any of these predictions. We'll see how it goes. The terrain is so unbelievably unreadable at the moment that we're in strange times, as they say.
We could be in a position where the president, honestly on air admits the existence of aliens. And we're like, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, it could be
next.
Yeah, or World War III broke out, or who knows?
Yeah,
who knows what the fuck's gonna happen? But the point of this is something that I was talking about with somebody earlier. Anything can fucking happen now. Before, it was generally received that you can look at things and be like, this is probably how it's going to go. Now, who the fuck knows? So this is my charge. Last year, for our New Year's podcast, we talked about just getting started. So this year, I'm telling you get started. whatever it is that you want to do it. Just do it. Get going. Absolutely. Be your own prediction. You know what I mean? Predict what you're going to do and then go do it and prove it, because God, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It really is that crazy. But that's going to do it for 2021. Midnight at the Spaghetti Factory. We have entered season 2. Thank you to everyone who's been listening on and off or steadily throughout the year plus that we've been doing this. And we look forward to bringing you a whole new year in 2022 of new art topics, new guests, new fun episodes, all kinds of stuff. Be safe. And I mean that not just with your health, but also with drinking and stuff this coming fucking New Year's Eve is on a Friday. This is not good for people.
Yeah, right.
It's good for the bar industry, which has suffered over the last year, but just be safe, make smart choices, really take care, use Uber and Lyft and all that kind of stuff, and don't drink and drive, please. We would rather have you here than on a slab. That'll do it. Happy New Year. Good night, everybody.
Happy New Year, folks.